So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this Ask Me Anything session for the first Velocity programme of 2022, which is starting in March. My name is Abby. I'm the events coordinator for the Melbourne Entrepreneurial Centre, and I will be your host for this session today. I just want to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the country from where I'm speaking today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. I pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders here today. And wherever you may be around Victoria and across Australia, I do encourage you to reflect on the traditional custodians of the land that you are on. Okay, so with that, a little bit about today. So the Ask Me Anything session gives you an opportunity to hear what Velocity is like from somebody who has recently been through the programme. And today we are joined by Amanda Nolan, founder of Guida, who was part of the second Velocity cohort of 2021. To start off the session, we'll share some information about Velocity, help you with your application, and then we'll open it up to the audience and we can kick off question time, which is what you're all here for, of course. So just in terms of housekeeping, if you can please just keep your microphones on mute unless you're speaking, and please do be aware that this session is being recorded and will be uploaded to our MAP YouTube page tomorrow. I would now like to give a warm welcome to the Velocity Programme Manager, Rory McNeice, who will give you a rundown on Velocity and how to apply. Thanks, Rory.
Thank you, Abby. Pleasure to be here. Just give me one moment and I'll pull up my slides and get everything sorted. Delighted to have everyone here to join us today. How's that? You see a nice starry background? Excellent, that's what we're looking for. So if I click on the right window, then maybe that'll work. Welcome to the Velocity Ask Me Anything session, where we will take you through everything that you need to know for Velocity for the first cohort for 2022. I'm just going to give a quick introduction to MAP, to Velocity, some information about preparing application, and then we'll jump across to hear some information from Amanda and get her opinion on the program and some stories, and move on to some questions at the end. So MAP has been around now for 10 years. I was fortunate enough actually to work for one of the first startups that came through in the 2012 cohort in its first year. And in those 10 years, it's supported a large number of startups, 160. Raised about $100 million for those startups and generated about $120 million in revenue for them as well, with 1,400 jobs created in those organizations. So been around, had a lot of really good impact in the ecosystem, got a lot of really good companies off the ground. But was it, I can never remember, 6 or 7 years ago, roughly, we realized that there was a gap. So the Melbourne Accelerator Program was targeting reasonably well-established companies that just needed a bit of help, after they've already got their products sorted, knew what they were doing, really wanted to just speed up what they were doing and grow faster. But we've discovered that there was a gap at the earlier stage where there were a lot of founders who were really interested in getting started, had a bit of an idea and a good starting point, but hadn't really developed that company and were looking for a way to develop the skills and knowledge to be able to get off the ground. So that was why Velocity was set up back 6 or 7 years ago. Someone I'm sure can correct me somewhere, to support early stage high potential founders and to help them really get the good foundation that they need for their businesses to be able to get them off the ground. In those 6 or 7 years, we've supported over 190 founders through Velocity, 101 startups. Over 50% have been to do with emerging technologies, which is medtech, artificial intelligence, all of those high-tech fancy things that everybody loves. And over 60% of them are still in operation. So we're really happy to see that those founders not only have been getting good advice, but have gone on to create successful businesses. We use Velocity basically as a pathway to acceleration. So we see it as the opportunity, being a pre-accelerator program, obviously, to prepare people for accelerator programs. So that includes our own Melbourne Accelerator Program at MAP as part of the university, but also other accelerator programs around Victoria and Australia, and even a couple around the world. So we've had, I think, over 6 have come through MAP itself, at least a dozen who have gone into accelerator programs around Victoria, a couple interstate and even overseas, as I mentioned. Altogether, the Velocity startups have raised over, well, I think it's now over $9 million in funding, generated over $6.5 million in revenue, and created over 200 jobs as startups. So we're really delighted to have been able to have that kind of an impact from working with these very early stage companies. We've also found that it's been a really great opportunity to ensure there's a lot of diversity in the startup ecosystem. So 52% of companies that have come through Velocity have been women founded, and with 48% being impact focused. So we're really making sure that we're diversifying beyond just that very standard technology startup run by the same people every time. Because we believe there's just so much impact that people can bring by having a diverse views within the team, within the companies, and even in terms of having a diverse range of companies in terms of sectors and industries that they're working in. There's so much value that can be learned from working with other people in other areas. So the core of what the program does is that we help early stage founders search for problem solution fit and discover their first customers. So it's very much about understanding, when you have a bit of an idea and you're like, I know that there's something in this space that's really valuable, but I can't quite put my finger on it. It's about answering the questions there around, well, what should that something look like? Who is it going to be valuable to? And how can I make sure that they're going to see it and see value in it and really want to get involved? So we do this by running first through a series of structured workshops, and also in parallel, there's mentoring from tell it's late in the day, mentoring from entrepreneurs and experts, and as well as becoming a lifetime alumni. Now, all of this is done through a program cost of $500, largely just to make sure that you actually stick around and commit to the program, because many years ago we found that offering it for free meant that people dropped off, and we want to make sure that everybody's learning everything that they can from it. In terms of the overall structure of how that actually looks in delivery, so the program this time around will be running from the 24th of March through to the 9th of June. So that's workshops every Thursday evening from 5:30 to 8:30. So those workshops will consist of, well, actually, you'll see on the next slide in terms of the content. And in parallel, obviously, mentoring. On the 8th of June, we're going to have the Velocity Showcase, which is the opportunity to show off these startups and show what they've learned to the ecosystem and start to build some of those networks and connections that are really valuable for the next stage of the company's life cycle. And of course, as mentioned, being part of the Velocity program brings you in as a broader MAP alumni. So you get to have relationships with a lot of the accelerator companies and previous Velocity founders. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention that we're very grateful to funding that comes from LaunchVic, which allows us to deliver this program and helps us deliver the content of the first cohort this year online. So we're able to reach out to regional Victoria as well. In terms of the kind of content to it you can expect throughout Velocity and what you will learn, basically, this is not entirely current, just because I've been rearranging things a little. But broadly speaking, we start with making sure that you're going to get the value out of the program. So looking through and setting your goals, really understanding what do I want to achieve across 10 weeks. We start with customer development and profile, so understanding who you're targeting with your business and why and what they really get out of it. Working on sales, on growth, on team building. There's a midpoint review just to be like, are we getting on track? Looking at things like systems mapping, product building, fundraising, pitching, reflections and next steps. So all relatively straightforward, but it's a broad adventure across the fundamentals of starting your own business. In terms of the timeline, so we're currently right near the end of the application period. So you have until this Sunday night to get applications in, and we'll go into a bit more detail about what that includes. After which there'll be interviews for those who are shortlisted, with the final cohort being announced on the 11th of March to start on the 24th of March for our meet and greet. I don't know if I should be clicking the live transcription box that's popped up, Abby. I'm just going to say yes, why not? We'll try live transcription. I've never tried it before, so. So, where was I? Online application. 3 main pieces. The first is around startup eligibility, very straightforward. The main part is around startup details and the 3-minute pitch, which we'll again get to a little bit later, and then some more details about you as a founder. The main reason that we ask for this information is because we really want to understand the problems that you're facing. The important thing from our point of view is to make sure that we're providing you an experience where you're actually going to learn and progress. And so I suppose a good way to put it is, it's not a test. We're not looking for someone to get a perfect score. We'd rather you be honest and open on your application so that we can understand where we can best help you and try and paint everything as a perfect rosy picture. But in terms of that application, the kinds of details that you should be looking to focus on are questions around problems, solutions, target market, your team, timing in terms of why now is the right time for this kind of business, traction that you've already had, what your business model is, and how MAP can help. In terms of the 3-minute pitch, very straightforward, 3 minutes. We recommend this structure just because it's a good way to make sure you cover everything off. And again, we're not looking, for a high score here. This is more to understand what the problems you're facing are and how we can make sure that we're really going to be able to help you as you come through the program. So if you find that your concern is you've got a bit of an idea about the market, but you really need to dig deeper into who those customers could be, and you've got like a little bit of an inkling where it could be, tell us that in the pitch. That's really valuable to know, and it means that we can target what we're doing to help you. Same things for business model or traction or competition. Generally, again, looking for honesty and transparency, because that's more important to us than a rosy picture. In terms of other advice for preparing for a pitch, if you haven't done one before, watch as many as you can. It really helps. You'll see that there are little techniques and tricks. Practice it, and just try and remember it. Pitch to other people, collect some feedback, and remember, of course, that it's just an opinion. It's feedback tends to be mostly valid, but it's not personal. It's usually about the content and the way that you're delivering it, just trying to help you deliver it better. So if you get feedback from people and it's a bit harsh, look at it as an opportunity to learn and grow. And also remember to keep in mind who your audience is. In this case, well, us as the selectors. And again, that's where I'd say, in this case, strive for that honesty and transparency. In terms of tips, if you should make it through to the interview stage, just make sure that you're prepared, that you have numbers if you need them. Of course, understand who we are at MAP and what we're doing. Generally speaking, the interviewers will lead, and so you don't want to go off onto a rambling tangent like I have a habit of doing, where you talk about something that's not really relevant, because they're going to be relatively short interviews and want to get as much information across as you can. You want to demonstrate that you've got some momentum and some traction, so that even if it's not necessarily customer sales, show that you're actually putting rubber onto the road. Show that you're putting in some effort and where you've been putting that effort and what you've gotten out of it. If you're going to be a team of multiple founders, understand who's going to speak to what. And of course, keep it real. If you don't know, you don't know. We'd rather you tell us you don't know. Of course, relax and have fun with the pitch. As I said, we're looking to get all of this information, but I'm not a professor at the university. I'm not here trying to give you a perfect score. I just want to understand you better. So don't worry if there are little hiccups here and there. Final bits of advice, of course, focus on building a great startup. That's what you want to be doing. So don't worry so much about getting a pitch in. As long as something comes in, we'll have a good look at it. So make sure you're still focusing on your business, and of course, make sure you do actually submit your application. I think it's just over 48 hours left. So at least 3 minutes of that might need to be a video pitch if you haven't recorded one yet. Next steps, of course, feel free to reach out to me, book in for office hours. I'll have to tweak that and make sure I've made some more time available tomorrow, I just realized. So I will do that. But then, of course, also just apply for the program at our website, and we'll be able to send those links around if anybody needs them. Other than that, I think that's all I have. So I'll pass back to you, Abby.
Thank you so much, Rory. That was a really great overview of the programme. I would now like to welcome our guest, Amanda. Thank you so much for joining us. Could you please tell us about Guida?
Sure, and thank you for having me, Abby, much appreciated. So Guida is your digital guide to living well with a severe health condition. So we're building technology that will predict the pathways of people living with severe health conditions and bring to them and their carers and clinicians real-time education to help solve for their physical, social, emotional and financial needs. but we're relatively early stage, having just been through the MAP Velocity program.
Wonderful, thank you. That was a great introduction. I'll start off now by asking Amanda a few questions, and then we will move over to the audience Q&A. So Amanda, could you tell me what your experience with Velocity was like, and how did the program help with your startup journey overall?
Yeah, terrific. Obviously a really positive experience, which is why I'm sitting here in front of you all today. So my experience was what will be really similar for most of you, should you be accepted into the program, which was primarily virtual. And I know there's a fair bit of Zoom fatigue, but it worked really well. So I had a terrific experience, a cohort of about 30 or so people, and formed a really good relationship, particularly people in my cluster. So we were broken up, I think it was into 5 or 6 clusters, small groups that we did some work with each week. So that, the network, the sort of collegiate feel that you garner is really terrific, but particularly with those people in your cluster. I had an awesome experience with the mentors throughout the program. And I think, they sort of came in two forms for me. So the experts who presented at each of the sessions, probably about 2/3 of them, I found a reason to connect with them pretty quickly and ask them some really specific questions that would help me on my journey. So I sort of hooked up with them pretty quickly, and same with it's this huge sort of platter of mentors that are just offered to you, and some really terrific people, within the university itself, but obviously external to the university, whether they've been through MAP programs or not. And I'm the sort of person that, every session that I attended or mentor that I chatted with, if there's just one little snippet of gold that you can take away, then it's a really worthwhile half-hour or 2-hour session. So, from a people perspective, it was really impressive, and, I'm certainly grateful for those relationships that I'll keep forever now. From a content perspective, it was really specific, I suppose, the reason I went into the program, and that was, given that, like most of you here, I was relatively early stage, I really wanted that structure and discipline to keep pushing forward. I'm always busy, but you just need to make sure you're busy doing the right things. And, in a sense, I think, Rory, you might have even undersold the program a little bit. I think you said, was it, a broad adventure of fundamentals. It's broad, but it's really tailored to take you on a very specific journey. And, as long as you're keeping up somewhat, it's just so beneficial, and that you can always come back to the tools, which I have done countless times, even since finishing the program only a couple of months ago. So yeah, I suppose, the key takeaways for me were the people and the discipline, and with that just comes a lot of confidence in terms of what you do thereafter, the way you speak about your own business, putting it forward to meet with people who are interested, potential partners, and also potential investors. Another objective for me was really to be able to confidently tell my story, even if I'm not ready to pitch, but just to be able to introduce myself, what Guida is, what we're all about. So then when I go back for a second, third discussion, and hopefully with more traction, they know who I am and they know my story, because I was able to tell it, with relative confidence. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. That was a really good and detailed kind of insight into your experience. Yeah, thanks for that. So moving on to more the application side of things, can you tell us about how you found the recruitment process?
Yeah, good. Look, I'm one of those people, maybe similar to some of you on the call. I tend to leave things a little bit later. It just gives me the thinking time. And it's something I'll come back to. So I remember, going into the application and sort of reading the questions, trying to understand it. And, I'm the sort of person that with any application, I'm just very honest. You want to be concise, but, this is where I'm at. This is where I have got traction. This is where I haven't got traction. These are the things I'm good at. These are the things I really don't know. There are things I don't even know if I know, in this whole startup world. So I just really focused on, well, what do I know and what am I confident in? And that was, a big part of my pitch. It sounds so cliche, but gee, practice helps. So, watched quite a few pitches. And then I did, you'll accept various forms. I recorded my pitch on Zoom. So I did like a presentation and my head was in a little corner. And that's the way I recorded my pitch. And I kept laughing because I don't know how many times I would have press record and then stop. It was many. And then, it wasn't that it was perfect, but I really practiced it. So I was confident and natural in terms of, I suppose, showing that I understood the problem, but I was also really passionate about solving it and genuinely so. So that's what I cared about in terms of getting across in my pitch. And I think then the interview really flowed from there. That, hopefully it was quite obvious when I came to the interview that, I was serious about my startup and, might not have the perfect solution yet, but I was absolutely going after the problem. And that's what I wanted to kind of show you guys, I suppose. And something worked.
Yeah, I was about to say, it obviously worked. So yeah. And I'm really glad that you kind of touched on your video pitch there, because I'm sure there's a few people on the call who are wondering how to actually prepare for that. So great that you covered that. So I guess next, what was the most valuable thing that you think you learned during Velocity?
Yeah, oh gee, that's a hard one to be concise. I'll bring my best effort. It's just that it's solidifying the fundamentals. And it's easy if you're a little way down the track, you might have a bit of traction or you've done a lot of customer discovery, to sort of think that you've ticked that box. And I think I sort of realized that, no matter how far or quickly I progress, I'll always come back to these fundamentals. They're just always so important. And some of the content I, covered before, whether it was through just my own searching or chatting with people, but I just improved it sort of day after day, week after week. So the value in really honing in and solidifying. And I realized at the start of the program, I don't think people really knew what I was talking about. By the end of the program, they had a much clearer idea of, what was in my head. So I think, from a content perspective, that was a, big learning. But I think, I'm probably starting to repeat myself, but it's those moments of gold from every person that you chat with. There are a couple of people in the university who, just really challenged me on a few points that, I was pretty certain of, and they made me uncertain, which was a really good challenge, I think. So I just, I'm continuously learning how to listen better, and that includes everyone in your cohort, right? And I had this cluster of some of the coolest ideas across health, wellbeing, furniture, cybersecurity, probably a couple of those people were about half my age. And you sort of think, really, am I going to learn? Absolutely. I learned so much from each of those people. So it's just coming in, being really open, I think.
Oh, great. I guess you kind of have, throughout what you've said, kind of given a few handy tips and everything. So just, I guess the last question is, would you have one piece of advice for the other founders in the room who are interested in joining the program?
Yeah, I just, be genuine. I think there's a lot of, when you play around in this startup ecosystem, a lot of people feel, which perhaps I did a year ago too, this sort of pressure to fit in. Mm-hmm. And I don't really know what that means anymore. I don't feel like that at all. So if you really believe in the problem that you're going after, whether you're wedded to a solution yet or it's too early for you to, know what that looks like, just be sure of yourself that, you're going to go after it and this can really help you. My other piece of advice is around any time you pitch, whatever moment you have, just practice. I remember driving in for the final showcase where we all, 10 of us did our pitches, and it took me 40 minutes to drive into the university. And from the moment I left my driveway to parking next to the building at Melbourne Uni, I practiced my pitch. It sounds so geeky, doesn't it? But I just felt really good when I got there. I'm like, yeah, I can do this in front of 150 people. Doesn't have to be the best pitch, but I can deliver it confidently.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure that definitely works. That's what we always say. Just practice. You cannot practice enough, definitely. Yeah.
Yep, so true.
Great. So I think we'll just move over to questions from the audience now. So we do have a bit more of an intimate group this evening. So if you just want to put your hand up, or you can just take yourself off mute and ask Rory or Amanda a question directly. Or if you're not comfortable doing that, just pop your question in the chat and we will get to them in order. We're all a friendly bunch here, so don't be shy. Maybe I'll kick off with another one. So let me just think. I'm not sure, did you mention, Rory, whether participants have to be affiliated with a university?
No, I did not. And the answer to that question is no. No, they don't have to be affiliated with the university. So that's excellent. And the other thing that actually I realized I should have mentioned is that there is also there's an option. There's one grant recipient at the end of the program through a partnership with the Cameron Foundation. Will receive a $5,000 grant at the end of the program. And Amanda, I'm sure you know all about this because that's you from the previous cohort. And so that's for a social impact founder who comes through the program. But yeah, Amanda, delighted to hear your comments about the value of the cohort, because to me, I think a big part of that value is that humans are pattern recognition machines. That's what we do. And we certainly see it as the value of being in that cohort is you get exposed to a whole lot of different variations on some of the same patterns, and even to some patterns that are completely unfamiliar. And that the real value in this is being able to see problems that you haven't encountered yet and see how people are solving those, such that when they do eventually crop up for you, you understand, oh yeah, I know, I saw Amanda going through this when we were going through velocity. I know exactly where to go. I know exactly how to start tackling this problem. So it's that opportunity almost to learn from the challenges that others are facing before you need to face them yourself.
Yeah, and I think with that, Rory, too, what I really like is because you're all, early stage, and obviously there's a lot of variation within early stage. Some people came literally with an idea, whereas others, even had a little bit of traction in market. But you know that the people around you are either sort of just in front or just behind. So if you're not quite there, you can learn from others and the great things they're doing, the mistakes they're making, the feedback they have. And if someone's just behind you, oh, gee, I didn't actually do that. Whoops. Or actually, I do have a little bit of advice for them. And it's, it's a nice kind of collegiate feel, those conversations.
Wonderful. Oh, sorry, you're going to...
I was just going to say, we've got a couple of raised hands.
Yeah, I saw Victor. I think you had yours up first. Did you want to take yourself off mute and ask a question?
Yeah, thanks, Abby. Yeah, it's a question for Amanda. So before you joined Velocity, was there anything that you were dreading or putting off that after doing Velocity that you felt empowered or emboldened to complete or tick off the list?
What a great question. Yeah, there are a couple of things, Victor. The first is a strange one, and some of you on the call might resonate with this and some won't, is that I was a bit sort of this whole startup ecosystem, and I have a lot of professional experience, but I'm so new to this world, and I probably struggled a little bit to engage people who were a fair bit younger than me. It felt like, just a different world, and that Velocity program has really changed that. I think, their approach to diversity is really genuine. It's not just about gender. It's not just about race. It's not just about age or profession. It's a real blend. And I just sort of completely relaxed in terms of, I can just have a really natural conversation with anyone. And that might sound strange when I, do have a fair bit of experience, but it's completely different when you're coming into this startup world where I don't, have the experience. So that was one thing that was a real game changer for me. And I think the other one was just within our cluster, we had a little commitment for each other that we'd sort of report back on we might mention something that we're just struggling with a little bit. And then we would go like, so what are we going to do about it? And we would just go out and do it and take some action. So, it wasn't necessarily one big thing, but it was those small things along the way. And it helped me really progress. Like, people with lived experience of these diseases that I'm looking at. There are a couple of people that I'd had conversations with, but never asked them directly if they wanted to help me out. And as soon as I asked, I got yes, yes, yes. It's like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I'm filling out this team of people who just want to help. That was remarkable. And probably the third thing was the conversation with investors. I feel really comfortable now having a conversation, even though I'm not yet asking for investment. I want to wait till this MVP is done, but I can confidently have a conversation, which I would say before the program I couldn't do, and I know when I'm not great at something because it just goes to the bottom of the to-do list. And now I'm so happy to book in those meetings. So that was the other thing the program made me do, which was just gold, was set up Calendly. So now, people can just click a button and make a meeting with me. I'm like, duh, I should have done that a year ago. So some of the small things actually make a huge difference. Yeah. I hope that answers your question, Victor.
That's a really really insightful response. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. I think the next question was in the chat from Jason. Can I use slides and video during my pitch? That would be one for Rory.
Short answer, yes, but don't let them overpower you entirely. Is what I'd boil it down to. So use them if they're useful, but don't use them as a shield to hide behind.
Yep, that's a good answer there. Next person, I think, was Zaya, had your hand up. Did you want to ask your question?
Yes, thanks, Abby. Actually, two questions. The first one, if we are more than a founder, should we participate, all of us, in the program, or it's enough that one enrolls in the program? The second one is about when we finish the program, what's the most probable or most suitable audience for ourselves? Is it further accelerator programs, or going to VCs or some angel investors, or it really depends?
So in terms of, sorry, I've already forgotten the first question because the second one was a really interesting question. So I'll start with the second one and then I might just get you to repeat the first one afterwards. But so in terms of where you should be at the end of the program, the very simple answer is it depends, because different companies will grow at different rates and they will reach different places at different speeds. Broadly speaking, the way that we try and target velocity is to get you to the point where you'd be very comfortable to walk into an accelerator program. It'd be unusual, I think, to go straight to having conversations with investors, just because we're still talking very early stage, and moving from that phase of customer validation and product market fit through to the stage where an investor would say, yes, we think you're ready, in what's realistically 10 weeks worth of velocity, or over a couple of month period, very unlikely. Just because I think the investment scene is so competitive at the moment that they're looking for people who are really doing well. So I would expect the most common outcome would be to either be ready to go into an accelerator program that might be more specifically targeted to your area, or to get to the point where you've at least built the sustainable foundations for a business and have a bit of time to then work on that yourself, and then figure out if the path from there is to go into investment or another program, or even if you're just happy that you've achieved a sustainable outcome. What was the first question again?
It was about if we are multi-founders, should we all participate in the program, or just one of us is?
Again, it kind of depends. Obviously, we'd love to have as many people in the program as we can. What we try to make sure is that people who are coming through the program are actually going to get a lot of value out of it. So from our point of view, our ideal outcome realistically would be to have one founder from each company and to be able to have a very broad reach. But at the same time, we're very open to having multiple founders from the same company come through, because I think there's a lot of value in, similar to the cohort effect across the program. If you have two founders, for example, who are coming through together, you have the opportunity to learn from each other. You get to learn more about each other, and you get to reinforce the things that you're learning through the program through your day-to-day work on the startup. So it's not strictly necessary. If you think that both of you would still actually get a lot of value out of the program, I'd absolutely encourage it. But yeah, we don't have there's no formal position, I suppose, either way. We're happy to have either one founder come through or multiple founders come through.
Yeah. Right.
Rory, may I make a comment on just what I observed in my cohort?
Sure.
There were, I think, there were a couple of companies that had co-founders. There were two of them there. And appreciate, it depends on number of applicants, etc., and the strength of those. But I certainly observed a real positive when a couple of sets of co-founders were in there, in terms of being on the same page as they're building a business together. And even though I was there as a single founder, watching those co-founders and listening to some of their conversations, you could see they were really benefiting. And so they would often come in and do the program of work, the 3 hours, in the evening on a Thursday, and then come back and report and say, oh yeah, we had this terrific working session to go through our business model or whatever, the topic was for the week. And they were absolutely on song. So there were certainly benefits that I observed from afar.
And that's a very good thing, actually. Sometimes if a technical one and a non-technical founder, sometimes they are both in two different worlds, but yeah, they could be thinking together and doing maybe much more work together, working.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, everyone. Next question is from Ash in the chat. Does it matter if co-founders applying for Velocity don't have equity in the business? In our case, there are two of us looking to apply, but only one has equity in the business at the moment.
I'll try and be brief. No, it doesn't matter. We'd happily take both of you.
Fabulous. Next question. Is it necessary to have to be related to the Uni of Melbourne to apply for MAP?
So yes, we did cover this briefly before. And so for the core accelerator program, yes, but for Velocity, no. With Velocity, our approach is we're trying to cast a very wide net to try and help people who are interested in getting into the startup ecosystem, and very much a case of the rising tide lifting all boats. So we see it as an opportunity to contribute to the startup ecosystem in a way that all of these fantastic people will build this knowledge and experience and improve the startup ecosystem for everybody. So for Velocity, no, it's not necessarily to have a relationship with the university.
Thanks, Rory. I'll just throw another couple of questions in here while we're waiting. Sorry, I apologise if you did touch on this before. So could you just tell everyone how long the Velocity sessions are and how many they have each week? Yes.
So the sessions are 3 hours. They're on Thursday afternoons from 5:30 to 8:30. I suppose that's technically Thursday evenings. And so there are 10 content sessions, but there's also going to be a welcome session at the beginning and then sort of like a congratulations session at the end. So the welcome session is on the 24th of March. The first content session starts on I think it's the 31st of March is after that. And then running through until I think the 1st of June ends up being the last, no, maybe whichever date in June it is a Thursday in that first week. Let me have a look. The 2nd of June is the last date of content delivery. And then the week after that, on the 8th of June, is the showcase where some of the startups get the opportunity to pitch, as Amanda was talking about, in front of up to 150 people.
And the course is all virtual?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So the first cohort this year is all virtual. We'll see what we can do about trying to have a couple of in-person, meet and greet events, but all the content delivery will be done virtually.
Thank you for clarifying that. So,
sorry, last thought on that actually is that we do, of course, have our wonderful, nice new building that we can see a picture of behind you. And there are some opportunities for hot desking at our offices there. So that'll obviously be discussed. There are particular requirements around access to the university, which is one of the joys of working for a large and sometimes bureaucratic organisation. But yes, there are opportunities for hot desking. We're always very happy to have the Velocity founders coming in and associating with the MAP cohort and getting a bit of that in-person experience too.
That's Rory, something I didn't speak about was at the end of our program, the last couple of weeks, I think it was, when restrictions eased a little and we were able to go into Melbourne Connect, and it's just awesome. The space is really cool, but also just to have the opportunity to mix with these people that you've been chatting with online, and also integrate a bit with the accelerator participants as well, and meet with them and chat with them, and other employees at Melbourne Uni. That was really cool. So I hope these guys get the chance to do that too.
Yes. I mean, I'm not saying that's literally the entire reason they built that building, but it is literally the entire reason that they built that building, to try and encourage those sorts of connections and relationships between people who might not necessarily bump into each other otherwise.
Yeah.
So.
Great. I've got a question that's been DM'd to me. It says, do we have to be making money or have an ABN set up to join MAP Velocity? How far along in our startup journey do we need to be?
So to answer the first part, no, you don't have to be making money yet. No, you don't technically have to have an ABN, but generally, we expect that it's sort of you'll get to the stage where you'd probably expect to have an ABN by the end of the program. How far along? Generally speaking, past the ideation stage. So you've got a bit of an idea. You've got enough of an idea and enough of an awareness of a particular area where you can say, there's an opportunity there. I'm confident there's an opportunity there. You may not know exactly what it looks like. You may not know exactly who the customer is, but you can say, it happens to be around. I'm trying to make up an example off the top of my head, and this isn't going to work well. Putting GPS into shoes, whatever it might be, but you can say, I know there's something there. I feel like being able to track where your shoes are will be critically important to someone. I don't know exactly who, but I just feel like there's something around that point. So as long as you're kind of at that point, that's where we'd love to pick up and take you on the journey of, okay, what exactly is the problem that you're solving with this technology? Who are you solving that for? How can you really understand what their pain points are and what will really help them, such that you can then refine your product or service to really target their needs? So there was a bit of a rambling answer, but I hope it was sufficient.
That was good, thank you. Question from Sarah. What are the options if you're not quite ready to apply this time around?
So if you're not ready to apply this time around, that's great, no problem. We run a second cohort, which will start in, I think, roughly September through to December. And we'd love for you to reach out to us and have a chat, and so that we can do what we can to help you get ready for that next cohort. So you can reach out to me for office hours. There's an expression of interest form as well, if you want to just make sure that you're on the mailing list. But so there's plenty of opportunities to look at the next cohort or the cohort after that, depending on where you're at.
Yeah, brilliant. This is a question for Amanda, actually. When did you start Guida, and what have you been doing since you completed the program?
Hey, when did I start? I formally set up the company sort of at the start of this financial year, so it must have been around July, August. And that was really starting with customer discovery work. So I've been in the industry for a really long time, so have a really good sense of the problem but really needed to push on the discovery work in terms of understanding the customers. It's, you know, B2B model, so you know, the end users versus the customers, and really test, because I've been in the industry, test a lot of assumptions. Some which were great, though, what I thought, and some sort of refuted some hypotheses which surprised me, which was super beneficial. So I was sort of at that stage, I suppose, when I started the program. So during the program, or sort of early stage in the program, undertook a prototype with a person living with motor neuron disease on WhatsApp. And there was some video content and shared training, etc., to sort of test the concept of people, will they work in this fashion? And then towards the end of the program, signed up a company here in Melbourne. So they're a provider of in-home care services, to essentially build MVP in collaboration with them. So as we build, we'll test with them on the, along the way. So started that really sort of signed towards the end of the program, you know, which the program gave me a lot of confidence in terms of what I needed to do to get ready to be in that position. So that's where I am today. Is it's a fair bit of work. It's really complex problem. I'd love to say the solution's really simple. It's relatively simple, but requires, you know, a lot of work. So that's what we're doing at the moment. Got a software engineer on board, and some people willing to help with content. You know, and the fun of that right now is navigating those things without having investment. So essentially bootstrapping at the moment and getting super creative.
That sounds like you've been busy.
Yeah, been busy, good busy.
Yeah, but exciting things happening by the sounds of it. Wonderful. Question from Mark. Any specific suggestions for drafting up the video pitch if the startup is only at the ideation phase, where all the suggested content for the pitch might not be feasible at this time?
So again, I'd say, you know, when the pitch is not a test, you know, we're not sitting there saying, you know, we want you to get a perfect score on each of these sections in order to progress. It's more to understand where you're at and how you're thinking about these things. So I suppose, you know, as we've sort of tried to hammer the point a bit, just be honest and open about it. If you don't know what the market is, you're perfectly welcome to say that. You're welcome to say, you know, I'm not sure what it is, but I think it might be something like X, Y, or Z. Or, you know, we've had a couple of conversations with someone who might be a customer, but we're not certain that they're the right person, but they were interested in A, B, and C. So, you know, just show that you've considered the questions and that you've actually got a reasonable, you know, thought process going on behind it in terms of what you're trying to do to answer those questions in the future. And, you know, that can be part of the, you know, one part of the application that we like to see is, you know, how can we help you? What are you looking for? And it could be, you know, if you don't really know exactly what the market is, well, that market discovery and market validation could be the key part of what you're looking to get out of the program. So don't worry if you don't have a perfect answer for any section. Give us what you've got and we'll work with that.
Rory, if I can jump in there as well, I'd say that was sort of the stage I was at when I applied. So I thought, yeah, I've got a really cool idea. I know there's definitely a problem. I have a fair sense of who the market probably is. So I put that in my pitch as, you know, and a plan of what I thought I would do going forwards in terms of, you know, the market size, you know, these people, these organisations. It doesn't mean it's where I will land or have landed at this point, but I just had a really good go at, you know, this is what I think, but being, you know, pretty clear on, you know, we don't know this yet. And as you say, this is what we'd like to get out of the program to answer these things that we don't yet know. It's kind of fun. The world's your oyster when you don't know.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Question is the next one. Jason, do you have connection with Melbourne Uni Research and Melbourne Uni Business partnerships?
I don't quite follow what you mean by Melbourne Uni Business partnerships, but obviously we are part of the university, and, you know, where we see there are opportunities to make alignments and connections between teams, we do what we can to support them. At the same time, you know, just to be clear, becoming part of Velocity is not going to give you open slather on the university's IP, because the university is quite protective of its IP. But we're happy to have conversations about if there are opportunities to work together and they make sense for everybody involved. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, if you wanted to elaborate at all, Jason, just feel free to pop that in the chat, but hopefully that answered your question. Question for Amanda again. Can you talk a little bit about the selection of the developer, how you went about it, assurance that you have hired the right skill set?
What a great question. I don't think I've got an awesome answer for you, Nick. I can tell you about the selection. So I am a member of Startup Victoria. I think it's called the Early Future Founders membership. And I occasionally jump on the, I call them the speed dating, the speed networking for people in the ecosystem. And I met this guy, where you get, I think it's 7 minutes to chat with each other. So about 3 minutes to tell each other about yourselves, and then a minute of feeling a bit goofy about, do I actually want to talk to this guy again, or do I hit hello on LinkedIn? And I received, I think it was a follow-up message on LinkedIn from this guy. And I was I'm still early stage, but I was really early stage. And so we had a chat, and, he seemed like a lovely guy. And then we just kept chatting. And I thought, I think this guy's really serious about being interested in the problem I'm trying to tackle here. And so then I sort of put on my professional hat. And one thing I do have a lot of experience in is hiring people, not hiring software engineers, though. I'm not a tech guru. So I thought, wow, how do I look at bringing someone on board? And I really have no idea about what skill sets I need this person to have. So I use my standard, just experience of what matters to me in hiring. And you might need to blip this out on your YouTube recording, but I have a very strong no dickheads policy. So that was really important, whoever the person is, whatever their skills are. And then this is where the Velocity program was gold. Was one of the mentors was the head of tech at a fairly now sort of, I think it was at UMPS Health, actually. So I jumped online, set up a meeting with him, and I said, tell me everything I need to know to hire a software engineer. It was brilliant. So that's the beauty of the network, that I could be a complete goose in terms of my understanding of what I needed to bring in, but use this network as like, this is not my strength. So hiring is. And so I thought, well, I'll ask him the questions about the things that I know are really important. So I need to know whether he genuinely cares about what I'm doing here. And I knew he was getting interest and offers. So I knew he kept coming back, but the questions he was asking were brilliant. And he could describe these technical things to me that in layman's terms that I could understand. And so I used other people, I suppose, just to help me understand, how do I ask this guy? I was nearly going to get one of them to interview him, but I haven't, because of just the way we've structured how he's working with me, that it's fairly low risk in terms of, if it's not the right fit, either of us can walk away in the near future without great risk. So I don't know if that helps at all. A bit of chance, a bit of networking, and a bit of experience.
Yeah, I guess that's the magic of these speed date founder events. You never know who you're going to meet in an unexpected way. So yeah. So that was, so that was a bit of luck at the start, but I think just, this in the Velocity program, you just can't underestimate the value of the network. And as you say, Rory, it doesn't mean you are Melbourne Uni, but I mean, I just feel really grateful that I have these sort of tentacles in there now, in terms of to people who are also, what I love about it is just people who are very genuinely willing to help. It's awesome. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. I think we're almost at the end now. So does anybody else have any last minute questions for either Amanda or Rory before we wrap up? Someone's got their hand up. Rob, yeah, feel free to ask your question.
First of all, thanks to Rory, Amanda, and Abby. Great insight. I've got potentially a unique question, so do feel free to tell me to ask one-on-one. But I've been working on a project within the university for the last 3 years, a research project, and we're looking to commercialize. So I actually found out about MAP primarily through TRAM and the programs that they offer. But the skills that you've described really align with what we're seeking. So we've obviously got some very unique IP things going on, which is quite complicated. But I guess primarily to Rory, if you want to do it offline, that's fine. But differences, benefits of this versus TRAM?
Definitely let's chat offline afterwards as well. But I suppose the fundamental difference is that TRAM is very much targeted internally towards researchers within the university. So it's as you say, looking at where there's issues around the university's IP and how, what the university's requirements are for commercializing that to get it basically out the door of the university. Whereas from Velocity's point of view, as we've discussed, you don't have to have any relationship with the university. So the benefits primarily in terms of TRAM, and I'm sorry, this isn't relevant to the majority of people who aren't necessarily researchers at the university, but the benefit of TRAM is fundamentally that it helps you understand, if you're a researcher at the university and you want to do a startup, what are the hoops you realistically need to jump through in order to make sure that you can get the IP to where you want it to be and actually start that business in the way that you want to start it. So it's about navigating a lot of those complex internal systems that you don't need to navigate if you're part of the Velocity program. So broadly speaking, my advice would be, if you're a researcher at the university or an academic at the university, TRAM is probably the better program for you, but I'm more than happy to have a conversation afterwards.
Thank you so much. I might send you an email.
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's perfect timing actually for us to wrap up. So I'd like to just extend a huge thank you to Amanda for sharing your journey and insights with us this evening. Your generosity is very appreciated by everybody on the call and the Velocity team, of course. So I'll share the slides from today along with a link to the recording of this session via email tomorrow morning. And with that, we'll wrap up the session. Thanks for coming along. And if you have any questions, just please shoot an email through to info@themap.co. Thanks, everyone. Good evening. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. And make sure you get your applications in. The clock is ticking.